Okay, so guys, this used to be a country. Okay? And in this country, we had G4TV, where it was about video games, bros, and hot people.
2002.
It was a
what
beautiful
a year.
Mary, you wouldn't
I remember it
understand.
like it was yesterday because I'm 2 years old.
You were like you were but a gleam in your parents' eye just a couple of years before.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a thing.
We were a country. We were a proper country.
So yes, we could all kind of coalesce around the idea of hot women video games
Who pretend to like video games.
Yeah.
For
Some
your
of them-
viewing pleasure.
Some generally pretended, and they pretended well.
Yes.
And
And
some,
good on them for that.
Good on them. And some hot chicks generally like video games.
Whoa.
I mean,
Incredible.
maybe.
That's crazy.
I mean, I've never seen it. But G4TV was the channel. It was almost the Internet 2.0 before there was Internet 2.0. It had memes. It had game reviews. It had generally interesting commentary on games and the gaming industry. It covered E3. It had cops for some reason.
Also, think about this. It died the year that Gamergate happened.
2012 or 2014?
2014.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It all comes back.
At such a perfect moment to duck out of that scene.
It's gonna
when
be
it just
hilarious.
was about to turn into an absolute hurricane.
When this country just collapses and then in the history books by whoever succeeds us, it ends up being like it all started with Gamergate, kids.
If you're a
And they worshipped this man named Ezra Miller.
if you're a G4 historian, it's like they have the show where they would compete in video games. They have X-Play. X-Play's budget keeps going up. Attack of the Show, Kevin Pereira and Olivia Munn, the freaking good old days, guys. And then Olivia Munn leaves. And
Why did she leave?
To become like an actual actress.
She was on a Daily
when did that
Show
happen?
with Jon Stewart.
When did she leave?
I don't remember exactly, but it must have been something like 2007, 2008, 2009, around that
So
time.
that was like the start of the end for them?
It really was.
I also want to
Okay.
point out that nobody has ever seen Frosk and Machine Gun Kelly in the same room.
They have it.
I'm just saying.
And then they try to
Do with that what you will.
Yes.
So Kevin Pereira left, and that the channel at that point is a husk of its former self. Because say what you might, that he really was the star of that show. And then he on his own right, he tries to revive the brand once again under The Attack instead of The Attack of the Show, just The Attack.
When was that?
That was when I was in college, so it must have been like 2016, 2017.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it freaking failed because it was his understudy who was honestly not as charismatic and as interesting as he is. He was kind of a bro that was kind of intense and rude.
Okay.
And they had this dynamic with this other girl called Erin Stevie, and she was a delight, but they had no chemistry whatsoever.
Mm.
And so that went down. And the big thing about G4 is there was a huge beef between Olivia Munn and Kevin Pereira. I'm just going to say it the Latin way. Bite me.
Okay.
There was a huge beef between the two that seemed to be irreconcilable for a while.
Do we know what the beef was? What was it about?
They poke fun of it.
Creative differences.
Love that one.
That's a classic.
Classic.
Honestly, I think the common theory is that it's jealousy because she became a star to the point where she was an X-Men and a bunch of things. And
Yeah.
they had a falling out because they were partners in crime. And they were generally good friends from what I could hear. And so G4, it tries to revive the brand for the third time.
I want to point out you can't do it. You can't. I don't think these things are revivable. I think this is
Yeah.
what nostalgia is getting wrong. That something like this, like you led this whole conversation with this was like we were a country. You can't recapture the magic of that place and time as much as you want to.
But everyone's trying to. And I feel like
one huge part of that also is that they started on cable television,
Right.
and then
So it crosses
Olivia Munn
mediums.
leaves 2007 or 8, right? That's just when YouTube is on the rise. And then they leave right before Gamergate pops off, and they come back into an entirely different atmosphere, an entirely different industry, really, that's changed on a fundamental level, and they want to bring back the same exact programs with the same names and the same pitch. They haven't updated it all. And it's not just the woke aspect of it that was the real problem. They could have done something non-woke, but still come into an oversaturated market with an unoriginal idea. They needed news shows and different hiring decisions,
and
obviously.
not have Frost come in and tell everyone that they're sexist for not wanting.
No wokeness. That's an obvious thing. But there are other failures too.
Right. And I'll get there. So, okay. So let me fast forward it. So Olivia Munn, Kevin Pereira, completely irreconcilable until they have like a Thanksgiving or Christmas special where it's just a bunch of member berries. We're like, hey guys, remember this, remember that? Weren't we great? And they use it as a platform to launch G4 once again. But this time completely under the actual brand of G4TV. They're not playing around with it. They're like, it's supposedly the relaunch of the brand on YouTube. It's going to be great. But, and here's the first trinkles of it. Here's the first trinkles of, hey, you're not going to get what you wanted. Like, this is the last bit of member berries you're going to get. They bring this guy from wrestling, Austin Creed or something, right?
Austin Watson?
No, Austin Creed.
No.
What's his name?
No, I don't remember.
Well,
I thought it was Watson. And then his stage name is like Xavier.
Xavier Woods. Sorry.
From the New Day. Yep.
Yeah, so Xavier Woods, they bring him in, and he does this whole thing in the special where he's like, yeah, G4 was good, but you guys forgot about people of color. And they were like, oh, sorry, that was a no-no. And you know what? It is what it is, right? It probably was a no-no. They could have been more diverse, but they got the people. They had it at the time. It was magic. It was good. It was what it was. And basically their whole thing goes out to be, we're going to be a modern version of G4. We're still in LA, so we're going to be all diverse and woke. But it's going to be video games. It's going to be fun. It's going to be skits. The whole hootenanny. That's going to be my new word.
Hootenanny.
And then it happens. Because in fairness, the brand is going on YouTube and it's getting subscribers. I'm sure they paid for it. But it's getting subscribers and they're really... It started to kick off. And then trolls on the internet, being what they are, they comment that one of the hosts that they got, I think she's a League of Legends commentator if I'm not mistaken. Her name is Frosk, or her
Indiana Black.
Her tag is Frosk. Indiana Black.
Froskerin or whatever.
Froskerin, right. But she goes by Frosk. Essentially, she goes on a huge, long diatribe where she says, listen, I'm not here to be hot. I'm here to give my professional opinion and something, feminism, something. We're not here to be ogled at. And Adam Sessler is just like clapping like a seal. Hard.
So much because who was even commenting anything that would suggest that's what she was there for?
Per usual, probably 3 guys in chat.
Like, no one expected Frosk to be there to be hot. She was never traditionally, conventionally attractive.
And then you see the list, their subscriber count drop from 496 down to 492, which is where they've stayed since then, it seems like. So,
wait, how many do they have?
490 for the
I
X-Play.
thought that they...
okay. X-Play, not G4TV.
Yeah, the main channel has like a 132K.
Yes. So it drops over a period of days because they don't know how to shut up. And I want to come back to this concept. I think back to the phrase, the world you were born into no longer exists. And I hear that phrase a lot. And it hits me very, very hard because a lot of the stuff that I watch, the stuff that I enjoy, was created prior to 2016. And I think this proves that, whenever people talk about reviving a TV show, I tell them it's a bad idea. You cannot recapture that magic. It doesn't work that way. Even if you create the same thing again, it has to be different in some way, right? So if you create the same thing again, there's the question of why did you need to continue this if there was no new story to tell? Mm-hmm. But with something like this, it evokes the sense memory of a certain time, a certain place, a certain state in which we as a society coalesced around a certain amount of social ideas. At that time, it was hot women in video games, and that was a thing. That was a great part of our culture at that time.
And like MTV was still a big thing back then.
So
like the whole playing field was different.
It's just not like now. If people wanted to do this, they just go to Twitch and find any number of independent creators that are creating the same type of content on their own.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
that vacuum was filled.
Yes, very quickly.
I mean, it has and it hasn't. Because the good thing about G4 was it was generally well-produced content. It was skits. They were funny. And they had thoughtful, provoking interviews with game developers. They had very in-depth gaming reviews. And they, to their credit, they still have it. But before they give you the review, they have to do this mea culpa. Like, sorry for being white, everyone. I'm sorry that I'm offending you on screen by being white presenting, yada yada. Anyway, here's the review. And so, anyway, Frost does her spiel. Everyone gets annoyed because it really wasn't what she was saying. It was how she said it and how accusatory.
No, I think it's also what she was saying.
I mean, sure, but like, I'm pretty sure you could say it in a way where it's not as
it comes with
annoying.
An air of contempt.
It's the air of contempt. Is Adam Sessler
and the company never recovers.
Never. And it's Adam Sessler like clapping like, oh my god.
So
freaking
now, like a lot of people think karma-wise, like it serves them right. They changed leadership back in March, right? Their former president stepped down, was replaced with another one who was all focused on slashing costs, and now 20 to 30 people have been fired. People who, by the way, are not on camera, who are not public facing, and
it's never the people on camera.
They halt programming for a single day and come back the next day acting like everything's fine and, you know, continuing with all of their normal shows. So it's just like you can't really regain momentum after that.
No, you can't. And the thing is, so it is, they basically never mention it. But it's understood that all of this is a result of her real rude clapback, right?
And then Frost makes a smart-ass comment about her not being one of the people who were fired. It's like, if you have any camaraderie with those staff members who got laid off, you would not make a comment like that.
Exactly.
Right. Because either you obviously didn't do it in what's the word? Like, you obviously didn't do it in purpose, right? Like, I'm sure had she known, or maybe, I don't know, I don't want to assume, but had she known that her diatribe would have gotten the company that far off track, maybe she wouldn't have done it. But it's data provable that she goes on a rant. All the usual drama channels are like, can you believe they did this? Mm-hmm. And their views literally jump half off the next day. Mm-hmm. So what happened here, genius? And she has to be self-aware enough to know this is kind of my fault. The company is not on the up and up anymore. It's on the down.
Well, it shows that they're really not focused on money as much as they're focused on their ideology. Like, these are true ideologues who are not profit driven. They're driven by messaging.
But it's not even, they're inconsistent with the messaging, because then there's like hot chicks on the show and she's like, wouldn't I love to have a snack of that? So
that part is always very annoying. They do the same thing in comics, right? Where, or even in the movies. Think about this. You cannot write articles about women being attractive, but they can make all the articles they want about Henry Cavill's abs and about how good various superheroes, how the guys get in great shape for these movies. But the second you do it about women, you're not allowed to do that because that's sexist. And in the comics, what happens is when a guy writes a comic, right, that shows a woman is conventionally attractive, that's not okay. But when a girl does it for like a relationship that's LGBTQIA, that's fine. So it's a weird type of double standard where you're not allowed to show both.
Yeah, objectification is only
it's okay when we do it.
Approved if a woman is doing it, which is like very short-sighted because it'll bring about the same consequences, and your idea of reversing that power dynamic then is to allow women to have the same so-called toxic behaviors that they've accused men of having.
They're allowed to now, for now.
And
but,
so,
like, that's your idea of reversing a power imbalance is just having women display the same dehumanizing behaviors that they accused men of.
Does feel like they want that, right? They want
it's
that.
Not about,
it always feels like payback and never about actually making changes.
Yeah, and my issue with this, I mean, I have several, but my biggest issue with this is what I feel what happened with G4 is the same thing I feel that happened with The Daily Show. Is that, listen, you can get genuinely talented, charismatic, and interesting gamers of all sexes, races, creeds, and religion. You genuinely can. But it's almost as if they're never looking for that.
Yeah.
They're just looking for the person that's the most ethnic within their ethnicity. Like they never think of how well they mesh together. Because the beauty about G4 was they were all cool, they were all charismatic, they all knew what they were talking about, and when they didn't know what they were talking about, they would defer to the other to kind of take control of that part.
Does it feel like there's a lot of contempt for the audience, too?
Not as much anymore, but during that week, because I was tuning in like pretty on and off, like somewhat regularly, because I love the brand. And I don't want to be this guy on the show that's just constantly like, oh, I hate this, I hate that. I love G4TV. Like some of my like fondest moments as a teen was laughing out loud with X-Play reviews and skits that were genuinely funny, and Attack of the Show and all these things. And it just sucks time and time again where this global niceness culture propaganda, it has to take precedent over the content every single time.
You can't go back. I don't think you can go back. I think I'm actually vehemently against any reboot or rehash of something. I don't think it works. I think that we are a culture that chases nostalgia now very heavily. That's what they're doing with almost everything that's rebooted these days. I don't think you go back. I think that's how it got us into the situation that we're in now. It's the revival of IP. It's the mining of IP for properties where, at the very least, do something different. Like you said, you can't you can't just come back to a new world and create the same show.
They made the mistake of not adapting back at the point when Olivia Munn left.
Yeah. Yep.
That's when the mistake started.
It probably started before that, because this history of laying off people and like massive layoffs and budget cuts, it's been the history of G4 since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
They, like, when the show or when the channel originally began, all their content was around gaming, and they had a bunch of shows and a bunch of original creators, and it was honestly groundbreaking. It was incredible. They had like a call-in show. They had multiple review shows. They had like an insider person in the industry. They had one just exclusively about trailers. They had one that was like the top 10 list. And if you think about YouTube now and channels now, there's singular channels devoted to every single one of these genres, but they had it all in one. I'm telling you, it was incredible.
I think the internet becoming democratized has led to people moving away from stuff like this that feels more corporatized and going towards individuals who are doing it on their own time in a way that feels more organic to the people, whether it is or it isn't.
And I feel that nostalgia is misunderstood right now. People don't necessarily want to watch their old shows. People just want a moment in time where they weren't being beaten over the head as they were being entertained.
Will never happen again because you're aware of it. Now that you're aware of it, now that it's keenly in the back of your mind, you will catch to even now I can go back and watch things where I catch things that I didn't catch before. It doesn't ruin the show as a whole, but now that you know that it's happening, that you know that is the tendency of these producers, these writers, these directors, and these actors, you will never have a time where you will... Cobra Kai might be the best example I can give of an example of something that's come back from a previous incarnation, but it's so different from the movies to call it the same thing is laughable. It's not. It's not the movies, and it's.
But at least the fans of the original movies also love Cobra Kai, and
because they pay great respect to the main characters and to the original story. They don't make anybody out to be less than in favor of new characters, right? So Miyagi, who passed away well before the show ever came out, is treated with great deference and respect in that show. Daniel and like the main characters are not necessarily good. Aren't necessarily good guys or bad guys. They're just characters that are done very, very intently. And I don't think you can go back to something like this, which was just such a picture, was such a snapshot of a time, and recreate that magic.
I don't think you can go back to that time, but I think we can get out of this. I think we can get, because wokeness or whatever, it came in a second. It was just like a tidal wave. Yep. And it came from a stimuli, or it was planned, or I don't know, but it came hard and it stayed hard. Well, wow, that sounds horrible. Sorry about that. But anyway, it
clip
came
that.
I will. But the issue is, I think just as easily as it came in like a wrecking ball. Sorry, I'm just trying to be cheesy.
It can leave. It's never happened to me.
It can leave. I swear. Like, people are sick of it. Everyone's sick of it. Everyone, okay. But I don't think anyone at this point likes it.
Wokeness aside, though, they haven't been business smart, and there's been a continued disregard and or contempt for the not public-facing staff members that's continued all the way from the inception of this company. And they feigned hurt about it on the day of. Like, they said, we lost some really talented and amazing people that are honestly family to us. We were all crying. We were all devastated, which is why we could not do a show yesterday when the layoffs happened. Emotions were high, and it was the right call to cancel it. So maybe that was true for some of their staff, but Frosk clearly doesn't give an F about the people that were laid off, and was a smarmy, self-righteous C-word about it.
Yep.
And it's simply because the public-facing staff were allowed to continue their job, and the people who were absolutely vital to keeping the shows going, and that's all they care about. So it's not just wokeness that I guess sabotaged them from the very beginning.
I also want to point out
that it was growing. It was the self-righteousness, as you said. It was
G4TV breaks its silence on layoff rumors, and what's really funny about this is they go out of their way to not mention Frosk's rant. They go out. They sure as hell mention the Amaranth segment, in which the people who would have run opposite to Frosk were like, oh, great, because it reminded them of a previous time, and with hot women, and hot women in ball pit seems right on brand. But
that was the brand.
They mentioned that here, that caused an uproar, but they don't mention what she said before. And then they're like, we have no idea why the company is once again struggling. So it says, gone but not forgotten, many viewers missed the network, fondly recalling favorite episodes of X-Player Attack of the Show, but then the unexpected happened. After a clear and continued interest in the older shows, G4 relaunched in 2021 with the catastrophic launch spectacular. Since then, G4 is powered up in a big way by partnering with YouTube TV. Along the way, it has even attracted big-name guests like Amaranth, whose appearance caused an uproar with the viewers. Wrong. Okay, it caused an uproar with the people who would have been directly opposed to the stuff that that Frosk was saying before. The people who would have liked this wouldn't have would have hated the stuff that Frost was saying, but they never mentioned that here. They just make it seem like now there's financial difficulties. Was it because of Amaranth in a ball pit? We may never know. When anybody who pays even the slightest bit of attention knows that wasn't the case.
I just want to say again, as a fan, can you please just stop hating us? You know, we don't intrinsically hate you. We're your fans. Like, we are the people you want us to watch. Mm-hmm. You know, just...
Well, you know who they hate even more than the fans? Hot women.
Yes, they do.
They are almost ideologically opposed to putting attractive, not just women, but anyone attractive in any conventional sense in front of the camera at this company.
Well, because you're promoting sexism and misogyny or something.
But
it really has nothing to do with your gender. It's literally just like, what do people want to see? If you have a rudimentary knowledge of marketing, like our marketing man extraordinaire here, you know what people want to see. Conventionally attractive people talking about their interests.
And charismatic as well. Because they're constantly talking about how awkward they are.
Well, right, and almost taking pride in it.
That's that's
so strange.
They think that's still the brand. That was at one point something that could have been marketed in an okay way, where you could look at this. You're not used to seeing kind of awkward people on your screen.
Well, you can be quirked up, but you have to actually be likable too.
Yeah. And they do not match those boxes, right? You can be quirky, but you also have to have a likable personality.
And not hate the audience.
I harp on that all the time. It feels weird to me that the bare minimum you're asking for is that you don't treat the people who pay your bills like garbage.
For real.
And also they were treating the people that made this whole production possible like garbage.
Yep.
They've just thrown them out. So how can you continue with the same level of production quality and the same content when you've just gotten rid of like half your staff?
In fairness, the amount of staff they had for the shows that they have did seem excessive. That's my opinion. And I'm sorry if you worked on the show, and like I bet what I'm saying is triggering the hell out of you.
Corporate structure does kind of lend itself to redundancy and overstaffing, but that doesn't make it any easier for them to go through this and then have Frost say, "I survived. Let's go play some games."
Yeah,
right. But
when supposedly everyone in the office was crying their eyes out about it.
The issue I think with G4 is that they're always like, we're going to revive it. It's going to be bigger and better than ever. And the way to do this is throwing money at the wall. And why can't anyone just start from the ground up, dude? Do what you can. Well,
that's what I'm saying. This doesn't work because it wasn't rebooted from the ground up, and it's you're trying to recapture magic that isn't there. If you had taken talented people and used the same amount of money and infrastructure to try and rebuild something new with fresh ideas, that would probably be better off than trying to revive something that clearly isn't working or resonating with modern audiences. Yeah,
the revival of not only the company itself, but the exact same programs is a mistake.
Imagine 10 years from now, me and you were like, let's revive, one day Pop Culture Crisis goes off the air.
Yeah, what if we're in our middle age point in life and we're like, let's bring back Pop Culture Crisis.
I come in with a cane and a walker. And I sit down, I'm like, all right, guys.
Well, no, really, actually, the proper analogy would be, what if we eventually end this show, and then a decade after that, the company decides to bring back Pop Culture Crisis, except with two people who are nothing like us.
With Rhett and Barry.
Who aren't likable, who aren't conventionally attractive, who actually go out of their way to look bad on camera.
Well, to be fair,
who go out of their way.
Gorgeous,
I'm not conventionally attractive, but that's fine.
People who are awkward, who hate the audience, who aren't interested in pop culture.
Welcome to episode 455, you losers. Why would you tune into us? We don't want you here. That's what they would say.
Yeah, and then they expect it to have the same results.
Yep. That's because they have a fundamental, I don't know if it's like they have a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually works, or if they just didn't know that a rant like that was going to happen and then doubled down because can you really tell her she's wrong?
And going back to Gamergate, as it always comes
back to Gamergate.
What was Gamergate? Gamergate was, hi, we're not from your world and we're going to take it over. And gamers being the hell you are. Right? And that's what this felt. She is not of this world. She didn't feel like a G4 person. She doesn't have like the moxie, the charisma.
Who does anymore, really?
Yeah.
Dane Font, pleasure to meet you.
Also, I imagine everybody in the chat right now is like, we're not coming back for that reunion, but then they secretly come back because they actually don't want us here. They want people that are mean to them. Maybe that's what it is.
I mean, I'm mean to Waffles. Keeps coming back.
You're mean to me because I like waffles better than pancakes.
I mean, well, it's because I love you and you're wrong, Mary.
You're trying to
for
fraternally instruct me.
Is it really that hard to just not be a jerk to people? Like that.
It is for me.
Literally, yes. Like for these media personalities, they aren't money driven. They are message driven.
That bothers me.
Why don't people want to make money anymore?
They don't.
What happened?
I have no idea.
Is this a symptom of recession that just nobody wants to make a profit off of anything anymore? It's so easy.
Serge says
there's a vacuum in the market.
Serge says I'll be there. I'll be here. LOL. I want to fast forward. I want a time machine kind of to see if
until they hire Rhett and Barry.
Yeah, Rhett and Barry bring back Popular Cultured Crisis episode 5000. And we have to like, me and you are like watching on a stream. Like I call you, I'm like, can you see what's on the internets? And you're like, what's on the internets? And then I send you a link, and then it's not even on YouTube.
It's
at that
in the
point.
metaverse.
It's in the metaverse,
Yeah.
so you have to wear like, and you're like, I don't have any of those newfangled metaverse goggles or whatever they end up.
You need
use, like,
Neuralink
Google Glass,
to watch the new version of Pop Culture Crisis.
And me and you are
2045.
And me and you are just being like curmudgeons and just really mean. Like, look at them. They don't even know what they're talking about. It'd be great. I'm down. You ready to do this?
I don't know if I want to live in this dystopian future.
We're gonna do it, and we're gonna lead an online brigade against our own show that we were used to be on. We're gonna fight back.
But it wouldn't be you. It'd be Barry. You know.
Just
I mean,
I have at least the solace of knowing we'll get more super chats than the future Pop Culture Crisis hosts.
Maybe
because
maybe if they have money back, maybe money will be gone by that point and they won't even need it.
I don't know. You can't with this situation. It's just like people don't want to make money anymore, and they don't want to make anything good, and they don't like the audience.
Do you think people are just burnt out? Like because of the internet being what it is, people are just burnt out. Like you're kind of always okay. You have to always be present. You have to always be accountable for what you say and do. You have to always be this and that. Like, do you think that there's just a certain amount of burnout that people are feeling?
I think one of my favorite Brett Dasovich quotes is, everyone acts like they're running for president.
Yeah, you have to. No.
And I think it's that. I think everyone, even us, in a way, even though we're real ass, we're like, there's a part of us that knows that we can't express everything 100% because of our media overloads.
Because I'm kind of an awful person. So no.
Yeah, you guys don't know that. Brett's a monster.
I'm kind of an awful person.
Yeah.
So I tend to.
Well, right now we are like on set.
Yes. Yeah, you have to be.
And that's completely different from our private conversations because it has to be. And I wish it didn't have to be that way.
Oh God.
And I totally understand why, like, if you try to see it from Frost's perspective, there are annoying people on the internet who don't get it, who want to, armchair about how you should run things like that. And
it sucks to be called ugly,
But also, like, you're not doing yourself any favors by making them hate you more. I just don't get the motivations behind what they're doing anymore.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.